Because of too much snow in the Waymanooch Wilderness, where we were going to do the Elk Park and Needleton Loop, we've altered our plans and came to the South San Juan Wilderness and are at the lower South Fork trailhead. Take Forest Road 250 off of State Route 17 in 11 miles. It's pretty good, no problems in the Civic, but the last mile of that 11 was pretty bumpy, very rocky. So I could only do like 5 or 10 miles an hour instead of the 25 or 30 I had been doing. But we're intending to do a loop, get up to the Continental Divide, hit Green Lakes, Blue Lake, Conejos Peak, I think is how you pronounce that, and then back down again in 3 nights, 4 days. So we're getting ready to take off, and again, to reiterate from the previous video, my Canon S100 froze up earlier in the trip, so I had to make a quick run to pick up the S120, and it does not have anywhere near the battery life, and the batteries I could pick up were even weaker than the OEM, so videos will be significantly fewer than prior trips, unfortunately. So I'll be taking more photos and less video, but hopefully you'll still get a feel for the area. So we'll be off. It's somewhere around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and unfortunately the weather has already rolled in, so we're expecting to get wet as we take off here, heading into the South San Juan Wilderness. Very nice wide open meadow. I didn't think we were high enough for alpine meadows, but I don't know if this had a big forest fire a long time ago or if it was logged for farming. There was an awful lot of rocks here, but sure makes it nice where you can enjoy the views even though it's not incredibly sunny. There is blue sky over that way. Haven't heard thunder for a while. Well, we created a little more adventure than necessary. We ended up going across the South Fork further down before we got to 726 apparently, because it stays on the, I guess it'd be the east side of the South Fork, and we were on the west side, and by the time I realized that, you know, this isn't right, we figured, well, this trail keeps going, so we just stuck with it, because the crossing was a little dicey for Sam. But then a couple hundred yards downstream from here, we came to a barbed wire fence, crawled underneath that, but the trail really kind of peters out on the other side there, though it's obvious that someone has camped a while back, but on the other side of the creek right there. But past that, you know, and trying to look upstream, it looked like it was gonna cliff out in a few hundred yards. So even though the 726 does eventually get to the other side, we decided we'd cross back over this way so we could be back on a real trail again. So it's probably about 5 o'clock now. Doing pretty good, actually. I'm just a few hundred yards up from where we crossed over, and can see that that was probably a really good idea. If the trail does continue on, it's got to be up higher, I guess, on the other side. It's actually pretty neat over here. There's just this little side trail for the view, and this is like a perfect spot to put a little tent. But we think we want to keep going, though I'm actually getting some sprinkles now, so maybe we will just stop and drop anchor for the night. Now we're just short of Green Lake, waiting out, I guess you could say, a hailstorm. This is kind of a brutal trail, really. I thought we were doing a pretty good pace, but it's taken us forever to get this far. Far longer than I expected it would. So we're just here waiting for the hail to stop, and we'll get to Green Lake, which is probably less than a quarter mile from here, and then decide whether once this storm passes, whether we can hit the CDT today or not to get to Blue Lake. The storm yesterday afternoon lasted for 2 hours and 20 minutes, and after sitting in that stand of kind of yucky pines for probably 90 minutes, we decided to bail and keep going to Green Lake. Wasn't hailing by that time, but still lightning. So we hooked it up here, actually found this spot right here. It obviously at the time was totally covered in hail. In fact, there's still some remnants right there. And as it turned out, we camped immediately north of Green Lake. You can't really see it, but directly through this little bunch of trees right here is Green Lake on the other side. So we're immediately to the north side of Green Lake. And as you can see, we're drying some things out. And so far at least, it's a nice day, but that's the way they usually start out. But this time we'll be up on the divide, so we'll be able to see if any nasty weather is coming in. You can see a few more things drying out over there, just to make sure they're totally dry before we pack them away. So it was an interesting night, but we survived and lived to tell the tale. Gotta enjoy the adventures in the Rocky Mountains. I've been cruising along the CDT here for a few miles. But we have some inclement weather off to the east of us. I've been trying to decide if it's going to stay east and we should keep going, or if we should just hold up right now and wait for it to pass. It's only about 11:30 in the morning here. Now, just a few minutes after our last video, we did decide to stop and put up the tent, and it started raining as soon as we got it up. No hail this time though. And it only lasted probably 30 minutes at most. So now we're back at it. And you can see at least currently no nasty dark clouds on the horizon. Well, we finally made it to Blue Lake. Around the corner and poof, there it is. So we'll see about making it to Glacier now, after possibly a little break. See what the weather looks like. No thunder, at least, that we've heard since that last storm passed. Another comment to add is this trail is extremely wet. We're here relatively early in the season, I guess. Haven't had to cross too many snowfields, and most of them have been pretty darn small, but I think you can see a little bit on the trail right over there. But very marshy and mucky. So that's what we get for having to come so early this year. After Blue Lake, you come to a somewhat confusing junction, because the little signs over there on the cairn only say Blue Lake a quarter one way and Three Forks 3 1/4 the other way. But they say nothing about the other trail, but that little post that's closer to me actually has barely scrawled in it 724, which if you're heading to Glacier Lake is the one you want. So it apparently takes off this direction. But we were really puzzled at first when we came down the hill over there. we thought, oh, someone's camping here, or at least horse camping, because that's an awful lot of stuff to bring up here, but it's pretty obvious. It's been here a while. So I'm not sure what the deal with that is. And it's starting to sprinkle. So I think we'll at least get our rain jackets on, or just stop here for a second. Have some elk over there on the hillside. Hopefully you can see them. And we woke up to a much nicer morning. It's windy, decent breeze. Our goal is the top of that mountain there. At least I think that's the one. And maybe it's behind that. And Glacier Lake is just over this little rise here. We camped right here last night. Hard to find a flat spot that wasn't rocky, marshy, whatever, but the trail, you can't see it with the camera, I'm sure, but there were some cairns kind of leading over that way and heading up the mountainside. Well, we're on the other side of the Conejos River, the headwaters coming out of Glacier Lake. Try to point this out, hard to see on my screen here. I think there's cairn on the other side is there. And then there's one on this side, right there. And one right there, which is not placed very well because it's hidden up against a bush. And then one right up there. So you can find your way. Pretty much you just need to get to that ridge line, I think, is the idea. We got a ways to go yet. The weather's holding out pretty well so far. Made it to the top, to Conejos Peak, and thankfully it wasn't that one over there. We're now leaving Conejos Peak. Gonna make it down to, I guess technically somewhere around here is I think right down there is the Tobacco Lake Trail, but we're heading the other direction on the Tobacco Lake Trail. Make it down into that valley there and I think, head off that way and then down into the one that's further out that way. So, on our way out now. See how fast we can go. Like many areas in the South San Juan, the trails are not necessarily marked. We saw this big log here from way up there because we're going, where in the world do we go next? And you might be able to see it, Karen. We zoom in here. Yeah, there's a switchback there, and Karen should be right about there, but pretty hard to see, so you gotta have some route finding. Not much, but yet another unsigned junction here. We just came that way because we totally lost the trail coming down, so I can't see it way up there, but trail kind of comes down that way, and we lost it over on that edge, and we knew we had to come down this way, so we just went downhill, pretty much straight downhill until we intersected with this trail just a little bit over there and came this way, and that goes up the Rinkin Trail, I guess, and this should be our Roaring Gulch Trail, and the rain has started. Now, we still hear thunder, but the rain has finally died down, at least roughly where we are. So now we're working our way down the switchbacks and mucky trails, and an incredible amount of blowdown on this Roaring Gorge Trail. Having to hop over all sorts of stuff and go around all sorts of stuff, so very slow going, unfortunately. Well, we survived, made it out back to the car. I have to say that we didn't really care for the Roaring Gulch Trail too much since we were in rain the entire time. On and off, sometimes it sprinkles, but it's kind of dreary. Horses had chewed it up, lots of blowdown, lots of mucky places. So it definitely wasn't our favorite trail. But you can still see it's pretty blah out. Sun was trying to tease us every now and then, you know, a long way away from where we were, but oh well, we made it.